Just checking the mic out here. Check 1 2 check. Check 1 2 check. All right, just doing a couple of checks before I go on. You are the producer, so if you are live in the chat, let me know what I sound like. Sometimes the audio goes all somewhere. Just let me know that it sounds crisp, that it sounds clear. It is 3:42 Arizona time. It's a beautiful day, 109 degrees outside. This is the first day I'm like, it's warm. Heading up somewhere tomorrow. Want to get feedback if anybody comes into the live about Lake Havasu, if anybody's been up there. Maybe places that I should check out why I am up there. So please let me know. We're going to talk about Arizona and we're going to talk about Texas history for the next hour here on the Arizona Timeless Tours live show. So stay tuned. Don't go away. Tell as many people as possible that we are live. We are talking Texas history. We're talking Arizona history. And because I spent 3 months in the great state of Texas, we're going to talk about some great spots out there. Again, I want your input on Lake Havasu because tomorrow at 5:30 in the morning, a buddy of mine, we're heading up there. 4 hours and 45 minutes, 249 miles away. I need to know what to check out, not just the bridge, but some other historical sites around Lake Havasu. So share this with as many people as possible across YouTube and Facebook. Hit me up in the chat. Tell me where to go at Lake Havasu tomorrow other than the London Bridge, because that's the first place I'm going to go and record. So stay tuned. We will, again, be talking about Texas and Arizona. Again, just doing a quick sound check. Check 1 2. Quick sound check. Check 1 2. Tell me in the chat if this sounds right, guys, before I start. All right, let's bring that off. Let's shut that music down. Looks like we got 8 people in the chat, so or 8 people at least watching on Facebook or YouTube. It looks like we got 2 people on Facebook. So hello, Facebook. Share this link with as many people as possible that are home. I need to know as much as I can about. Let me turn this down. I'm sorry. About Lake Havasu. I have not done a lot of studying on this place. and I'm heading there tomorrow at 5:30. A lot of people have asked me, how was my Holbrook trip? Because the last time I was live, we talked about me going to Holbrook. Holbrook and Lake Havasu. That's it with gas prices, folks. Those are the last two destinations. Added it up, we've gone over 53,000 miles in the last 5 years and 2 months. And the way gas prices are now at $5.50 here in Gilbert up the street, the cheapest I can find it. That's it. So a buddy of mine, I'm driving to his house. He lives about an hour away, hopping in his car, give him some gas money, and heading to Lake Havasu. Along the way, we're going to pass right by Bouse. If you haven't been to Bouse, that is a pretty phenomenal spot too. That's where General Patton trained for a top secret mission in North Africa during World War II. Played with some kind of lights on top of tanks. There's still tank tracks out there. But right along the road on the way to Lake Havasu there's a couple of tanks on the side of the road. There's a couple of monuments. I've been there. I've done a YouTube video on it, and I've also done a TikTok on Camp Bouse if you want to check them out. But you go right by it on the way up there. So we'll stop there because my buddy has not been there before. And I said Holbrook. Holbrook is the other spot I wanted to get to. I had to cancel that last Thursday. I did not get a chance to get up there. And today was the first day I'm like, whoo, it's hot. 109 on the dial. It kept going between 109 and 110. And the Jeep Gladiator, man, that fan was just cranking for the first time inside that engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up to Lake Havasu tomorrow and spend the day up there with my buddy. Come down probably tomorrow about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. Leave out at 5:30 in the morning. Again, it's about a 5-hour trip from Gilbert. And then head out sometime during the week to Holbrook. And then we're finished traveling. It'll be mostly lives, live on TikTok, like on Facebook, YouTube, and stuff like that. We'll do lives like this, talk about some great places to take friends and family from out of town. Anytime during this live that the audio goes berserko on me, please let me know in the chat. That would be greatly appreciated. There's that great lady out there, Lori. All right. So we're going to talk, we're going to mix in Arizona. We're going to mix in Texas with Arizona. Since I spent 3 months in there and I've got a lot of footage, I've got a lot of pictures and a lot of history from Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about Texas during this live, intermixed with the great state of Arizona. So let's see. Let's jump into the very first spot here. Appreciate everybody that's cheers to you. Jason, good to see everybody out here. Mark, Wild Smooth, the great Lori Bodemer. Let's see what we got going on here. We'll pull up the old email address in case you want to get a hold of me. That's the email address that you'll get a hold of me at if you want to schedule a tour. That's it. The AZTT at the AZTT.org is where any questions you might have about the great state of Arizona, any questions about the tours, the book the tours, you want to hit me up at that email and I'll get right back to you. Boom, we'll put that one up right there. We do tours 7 days a week, Florence, Arizona, and up there at Globe Pioneer Cemetery. So if you want to schedule one of those, I know it's warm, folks, but there's a lot of different ways we can do the Florence one. If we started at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, it's no big deal to do the 90-minute tour. If you need to stay in the car, you can stay in the car. I'll get out. Got two-way radios to communicate. There's a lot of ways that we can do it when it gets to about 110, 115. That's hot to me. So let's go into the graphics. And let's see what we got going on here. I don't know what's going to come up here, folks. Or Perry Owens, one of the most unusual names in the Old West, maybe one of the coolest. He became sheriff of Apache County in January of 1887. He is most famous. It looks like I'm 5 foot tall and well, wait a minute. It doesn't look that bad on the video. Okay, on my end, it's distorted. So you tell me in the comments. I'm going to play the Commodore Perry Owens gravesite next. I'm looking at it on Facebook to make sure I sound and look halfway decent. monitor, and it looks fine on there. So I'm going to play the video. You tell me if the video looks all right. It's very distorted on my computer. It looked like I was 5 foot, about 300 pounds on this thing. It's good to see this. Site 6, aka Lake Havasu. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to play this video. Please tell me in the comments as the video is running if the thing is distorted or not. It did not look good on my computer, but it looks fine on the phone. So we'll restart it. Or Perry Owens, one of the most unusual names in the Old West, maybe one of the coolest. He became sheriff of Apache County in January of 1887. He is most famously known for serving Andy Blevins with a warrant at his home in Holbrook on 4 September of 1887. Andy Blevins played a huge role in the Pleasant Valley War during 1887. Owens knocked on the Blevins' front door, and a gunfight ensued. In less than 2 minutes, Owens had killed 3 people and wounded 1. Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks great. It looks great on the Facebook there, and somebody said it looked great on YouTube, and it's very distorted on my end. Again, I looks like I'm 5 foot tall, 350 pounds walking around there. But looks like we got 2 people live on Facebook. That means we have, if I have my second grade math up, we have 2 people on YouTube. Good to see everybody. Doesn't look bad here, Jason says. All right, we'll put that up there. Appreciate that. That is up at the Citizen Cemetery in Flagstaff. That is the Commodore Perry Owens. The Commodore Perry Owens has a very interesting history. I find a lot on the Wild West that when you start digging into the books, I got over probably 150 books on Arizona alone. And when you start digging into the stories, one book will have it one way, one book will have it the other way, but they're kind of, similar. They're telling about the same story. Then I get over to Bob Bosbell, one of my favorite people for history. Bob Bosbell, who owns the it just went out of my mind here. True West magazine. Bob Bosbell is the owner of True West magazine, has been for many years, and he had an article in there about back in 2018 on the Commodore Perry Owens, one that I hadn't heard before. And he really much gives it to you straight up. And all the stories we heard about the Commodore Perry Owens and being the sheriff of Apache County back in 1881, he wasn't really everything everyone thinks he is. There's a picture of him in that long hair that you saw at the end of that video, long hair. He's dressed up. That's the picture you see of the Commodore Perry Owens everywhere. He has a very unique and cool name for the time period in the 1880s. But he was hired as the Apache sheriff of Apache County back in 1881 because there was some problems, especially in Holbrook, where I want to go. And Holbrook, the Hash Knife gang, Hash Knife Cowboys were roaming around there because of the unbelievable amount of cattle that was being moved through Holbrook in 1881. The railroad was coming through there. It was the town known as not a place for women and not a place for churches. So Holbrook was known as a place where don't bring any women and children, and they're not going to put up a church. And if you think about it, Holbrook became Holbrook in 1881, and it didn't have its first church until 1913. Think about that. So I know it had women. It had about 250 people, I believe, living in the town around 1881, 1882. Really became a haven for a lot of bad things to happen, a lot of wild people to live. They say always Tombstone back here is the town too tough to die. Tombstone couldn't hold a candle, a match, or anything to Holbrook in 1881 with the Hash Knife Cowboys out there, with the Pleasant Valley War, the Tewksbury-Graham feud, just just south of there, about 40, 45 miles. with all that stuff going on there, and then with Andy Blevins Cooper living in that town, and the Andy Blevins Cooper house still stands by the railroad depot in Holbrook today, and that was where in September 4th of 1881 there was a huge shootout, and this is where the Commodore Perry Owens gets his you know gets his reputation, and why we still talk about him. September 4th, 1881, and Commodore Perry Owens by himself goes to serve a an arrest warrant to Andy Blevins, aka Andy Cooper. He had changed his name because he was such a bad dude. He went to his house, and the funny thing, it's not funny, but the thing that was happening before um, Andy Blevins Cooper got there on the 4th of September, a couple of days prior to that, he was involved in one of the shootouts of the Pleasant Valley War with the Tewksbury Graham feud. He was on the Graham side, and he had killed John Tewksbury and his friend. And after he had done that, he left and came back to Holbrook. He got on his horses and went back to Holbrook. And then he came back to Holbrook bragging that he killed John Tewksbury and his buddy. And horrible way to die, both of these guys. So the town was in this, they're blabbing about killing people. They're blabbing about what they're doing. You got the hash knife cowboy gang roaming all over the place. The saloons are off the hook. Things are things are wild and crazy in 1881 in Holbrook. And that house, so Andy Blevins goes to this house. There's about 9 people in this house. The house is less than 600 square feet, really small home. The Commodore Perry Owens goes to serve the arrest warrant by himself, and he doesn't go and kind of survey the area for a couple of days. He's going to go right in. He doesn't know that there's 6 women and children are in there. Uh, there's a lot going on in there. And I would have thought that he would have gone and surveyed the area before he decides to take a shotgun and go up to Andy Blevins, who is notorious as in taking out law men. And he walks right up to the door, knocks on that door. Again, the same house that still stands in Holbrook today. And Mrs. Blevins opens the door. He asks for Andy Blevins. He comes to the door, sees that it's Commodore Perry Owens, tries to shut the door. The Commodore Perry Owens puts his foot in the middle of the door, says, "Look, Andy, I'm here to serve a warrant on you. It's over a year old. It's for stealing cattle." And Andy says, "Look, I'm not coming in, or I'm not ready right now." And he pushes the door closed, and the Commodore Perry Owens steps back, aims his gun right at the door, doesn't look at who else is in there, and shoots through the door. And he shoots right through the gut, the belly of Andy Blevins. And that's pretty much going to do it for Andy Blevins. He's going to survive a couple more hours, but he's going to die of those wounds. During this gunfight, he shoots about 4 times with the shotgun and kills 3 people and wounds 1, and then just walks away after the carnage of what's happening. But the townspeople in Holbrook are happy that the Commodore Perry Owens went and took care of business like this. And it's crazy what it was like in 1881 compared to what we have today. But that's a spot that I want to get to up in Holbrook because the house still exists. And right on that roadway where that house exists is another historical spot. Let's hit this incredible. Let's see what we got going on here. Incredible, cool story. You're going to do a paranormal tour of Pay Extra AT&T. Yeah, that is one thing, Jason, I don't do is anything paranormal. That's just not my channel, and really not me. If you know, I don't touch on any of that kind of stuff. Some of the places I go have a history of it, like the Apache Death Cave and some of these old buildings that I go to. Believe me, a lot of people have been down there doing uh, shows like that in a lot of places that I've gone to. Let's see here. I saw your TikTok. It said the cabin was moved. I wondered if you'd ever been to the original cabin location. I have not. That would be tough to find. I would have to find somebody that lives in Young, Arizona. And then when John Tewksbury and I think it's Bill Graham were killed by by Blevins before he left back for Holbrook. They were their bodies were they couldn't get to the bodies. The family couldn't get to the bodies, so the bodies were they had wild hogs feast on them for a while because they laid out there for 10 days. And then they had vultures feasting on them for 10 days. And they had to bury them in a shallow grave back there. And that grave still exists today, but you need a tour guide to take you back there, somebody from Young, Arizona, to take you back there because it's such a remote location. The cabin that they moved, and I'm very thankful that they did, was on Cherry Creek. Now, I have no idea where on Cherry Creek. There are plenty of pictures of that cabin um, from, I would say, the late 1890s to the early 1900s that were taken of the cabin on Cherry Creek before it was moved. It was like a two-story cabin. When they brought it back, now it's like a one-story cabin. But I have not been to the original site. I would love to find a tour guide to take me out to that place in Young, but I have not been to the original location. Uh, there's that cabin right there. Uh, so you have the Blevins House that I believe it must be a little bit bigger today. You can see it online. A lot of people have been out there. It's pretty small, but I believe it's like a senior citizens home now that they house some of the elderly in that house, which I don't know how they do that. Definitely will see when I get out there. But there's a road out in front of it, and that road runs not too far beyond that house to where it curves off, but then it goes straight along the railroad tracks. And that is part of the original wagon road of the when they surveyed the 35th parallel for the wagon road back in 1857 with that famous camel expedition where they used 25 camels that they had acquired on two boat trips to Africa. And I believe they brought back 44 total camels. And then they took 25 on the Edward Beale expedition in 1857. That expedition started in April of 1857 and finished up in November of 1857 in California. But they surveyed out a wagon road along the 35th parallel, and that wagon road, that original wagon road, is part of Interstate 40 now, is part of the old Route 66 that still exists now, and runs right by the Blevins home with a famous September 4th, 1887 shootout with Andy Cooper and the Commodore Perry Owens that we just talked about. It runs right by it, and in front of that house is the plaque stating that that is the original wagon road area, and that is where the great camel experiment took place with Edward Beale back in 1857, April of 1857. Stand by for 1 second, folks. All right. All right. So let's move on. Let's see what else we got going on. So again, if you want to go see the Commodore Perry Owens gravesite, it is in the Citizen Cemetery right across from Northern Arizona University. I could hear the guys, and they were practicing singing or something, not about 100 yards from that gravesite. And that gravesite is right across from it's on the opposite side of the cemetery. You can find it pretty easy. I actually got a picture of it here to show you. Bring up the graphics really quick. Where's that picture at? Here it is right here. There's the gravesite of the Commodore Perry Owens. Pretty good sized gravesite. Again, the chain around the gravesite and then the huge headstone right there it makes it a lot easier to find it. It's right off the main road, one of the main roads going in and out of the Citizen Cemetery right there. A pretty awesome piece of history right there. I believe he passes away in 1919. And if you read anything about him, it'll say that he was famous for the September 4th, 1887 shootout with Andy Cooper Blevins. But he did a lot in his life. But just like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and all them at the shootout at the OK Corral like the highlight of those guys, the Cowboys back then, of the Clanton and the McClarys and all of them. That was the highlight of the Commodore Perry Owens. And then for years, think about it, he dies in 1919. That happens in 18 back in 1887, and he's noted for that all the way up to the time he perishes, and since 1919, over 100 years. All right, let's move to let's talk about this spot right here. This is in Texas, in Waco, Texas. This is the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum. Great spot. If you ever have the chance to go to the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum in Waco, Texas, don't miss out on this place. They have a great exhibit of Bonnie and Clyde inside here, which I was very thankful that TikTok left up when I posted it, probably about 10 months ago when I was in Waco, because they don't like to show guns and stuff like that, even if it's in a museum. And this museum is nothing but a bunch of firearms. 90% of the museum is firearms. But it's the history of the Texas Rangers. And again, in the back room, they have a whole huge display on Bonnie and Clyde and all of the weapons that they confiscated from Bonnie and Clyde over the numerous robberies that they committed, that they left the weapons behind. And the weapons, a lot of the weapons from the car, when they finally got those two, a lot of that stuff is on display there. Frank Hamer, the famous Texas Ranger who caught them. Frank Hamer is pretty there's a book out on him, and unfortunately I packed most of my books away, but it's like a 500-page book on Frank Hamer, the ex-Texas Ranger. This guy was a Texas Ranger during the time of the Cowboys, so he used to ride around on a horse in these towns, and then he all the way to this point where he's tracking down Bonnie and Clyde because nobody else can get them. So he's hired to go and track down Bonnie and Clyde, and him and Manny Galt, his fellow uh, friend that worked with him during his time in the Texas Rangers. Those two guys find him and take care of business. But the Texas Ranger Museum is a must see if you're in Texas. If you're in the Waco area, don't miss this place. It's really interesting because it's just off the side of the road there. The sign is more spectacular than when you actually see the building to the right. But you'll want to spend at least 60 minutes in there. The gift shop in there, the books on the history of the Texas Rangers it's just an awesome spot. So make sure you check that spot out. Now we head back over to the great state of Arizona. Does anybody know where this picture was taken? I'm going to go back into the captions. I'll wait a few minutes and go into the chat here. And anybody know where this picture is taken? If they ever been to this area and saw that American flag right there, and what is the significance of that American flag in that glass case right there? And it's kind of the significance is right in front of you with all those pictures. If you can see them on the screen that you're looking at, because I can definitely see the stories written on the signs behind that American flag. But I'll just hold for a few minutes to see if anybody knows where this is at. Anybody? And this up here while we're waiting. All right. This is at the Arizona State Capitol Museum, folks. That is a Rough Riders flag. When the Rough Riders were getting ready, when Roosevelt had them all down there around San Antonio, around the Manger Hotel, and he was getting all of these guys together, and they were doing all these drills. When they were going to leave the country, they realized they didn't have a flag. So this flag was put together by women in the great state of Arizona. They sewed this flag in no time flat and sent it to Roosevelt, and he carried this flag, the Rough Riders, everywhere they went. And it was brought back and placed in the Arizona State Capitol Museum. I think it's on the third floor of the Capitol Museum, and they have pictures in front of it of them with that particular flag. that was made by women in the great state of Arizona quickly so that Rough Riders could have a flag to carry into battle. So that is a pretty cool piece of history. So if you ever get to the Capitol Museum in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, check out the Arizona State Capitol Museum. It's absolutely free. I talk about it all the time. 4 stories. That facade that what we everybody thinks is the state capitol is actually the territorial capital that was built in 1901 at like 40,000 feet. Now it's like nearly 200,000 square feet. Now it's just a 4 story museum that's absolutely free. That has just the history of Arizona, and this is one of the coolest pieces they have in there. Is the original Rough Riders flag that good old Teddy Roosevelt used during that campaign right there. All right, so this we're going to jump back into. So we're going back and forth. In case you've just joined, we're going back and forth between Arizona history and Texas history. I spent over 3 months and over like 1,300 miles traveling around the humongoid state of Texas. So I'm going to share some of these places in case you ever get there. But the Branch Davidian compound. Welcome to the new Mount Carmel Center, the Stone Church, the Branch, the Lord of Righteousness. This is what you'll see before you go on to the Branch Davidian compound that we know was an absolute horrible thing that happened. But this place is still open today, and that church still meets in that same location. That compound with the government and everything when it burned down. Uh, I mean, if you're if you remember it, which most people do because they had TV coverage of it 24/7 of the Branch Davidians. Uh, they have the area open. They when you drive in, it's just out in farmland. It's not in Waco. People think of it as the Waco compound, the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. It's not in Waco, Texas, but Waco, Texas is the closest big town to where all this went down. So when you drive in there, they have a little gate, and you drive in the gate and it says welcome, and you can come in, and they have a little box that says donations. And if I ran this area, I'd be standing out there with a box that they're allowing you on the land this many years later. They have a small church, and they have a few like double wide trailers and stuff like that where they stay. So you're going on to their property, and they open it. I believe it's open like 5 or 6 days a week. And we drove in, and this is the first sign you see. And then there's a little memorial behind this sign of everything that happened to that compound back in the day. And then you drive down the road, and not but a quarter of a mile, and there's a church on the right, a small church, probably seats like 100 people. There were people working outside the church. There was about 4 or 5 cars with me, and you could walk out, and the only thing that's left of that compound is the basement area that they were constructing at the time of the fire. At the time that all this went down, they were constructing a basement area to this area. And I have pictures of that, just didn't download them for you to see. But it's a very interesting place, very eerie place. There's a school bus that was buried in the rubble, and it's underneath the ground. And you can kind of like see the top of the school bus, and there's a sign there showing you that it's there. And then you can walk back into like the wooded area. There was a pool back there, and then there was a basement, and it's just full of water, and all you can hear are the critters and the animals and stuff that are in there making noises. But they do authorize you to go onto the compound. I would suggest you leave a donation to thank them for keeping it open if you're a history buff and want to get out there and check this horrible situation out at the Branch Davidian compound out there in Waco, Texas. This was like one of the very first spots that I had to go and check out because I remember it like it was yesterday, and I had to get back out there and check it out. But yeah, that is in Texas. And I think that's the first stop for a lot of people that are around Waco, even though this is outside of Waco, Texas, quite a few miles. But we did visit that like the third day that I was in Waco, Texas, back in July and August of last year. Let's see what else I have here. Let's see if I have anything else on that. Did I download the video to that? I don't think I did. All right, let's pull up something else here really quick. Bring that down. If you're downtown Phoenix, the very first farm to be, I believe, was in 1868. A guy named Frenchy Sawyer. Frenchy Sawyer. There was a marker that was put there where that farm was located in the 1854, 1855. The marker was there. It looks like it's been that long, but it was the first permanent farm in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm going to show you the historical marker, and then I'll show you how to get to it if you ever want to drive through Phoenix. And here's what the marker looks like. That thing is right there, 1956. It looks like that this marker was put here. It says at this site in the spring of 1868, Frenchy Sawyer, and then you can't really read the rest of it, but it says Frenchy Sawyer came and built the first permanent farm in the Phoenix area in 1868. This is not far from the Crosscut Canal Cemetery. There's not many headstones existing. I think the oldest one's from 1877. It's like 2 miles from Frenchy Sawyer's first permanent farm. And then here is how you get to it. Take this off of here and bring up this video right here. 24th Street in Washington, where you catch the metro down here, there is a historical marker. So we're going to cross the street and we're going to go check this thing out without... And let me show you the marker right here. Cross, and right here is the historical marker. This is the first permanent farm in Phoenix. This sign is old, folks. You can barely read it even when you get on top of it. But the first permanent farm established in Phoenix in 1868. So they dug the canal out in 1867. Then we went to the cemetery. The oldest grave marker that still stands that you can read is from 1877. And this area right here used to be all farmland back in 1868. All right, 1868. Again, Jack Swilling in 1867 was digging out the first canal system, the old ancient Hohokam canal systems that were over 1,000 years old, flowing through Phoenix. And of course, Phoenix wasn't Phoenix yet. Jack Swilling went up to Wickenburg, put a bunch of roughneck dudes together because that's what he needed, formed a canal company, raised like $400, came back down and started digging out these canals so the Salt River could start bringing water into what would be, a few years later, Phoenix, Arizona. So Jack Swilling is known as the father of Phoenix. Now, when I say that a lot of times, some people get upset, people who believe that there were people in this valley, which they were for 1,000, 2,000 years before anybody else. This is modern day Phoenix, though, 1880s Phoenix, Arizona. Jack Swilling is known as the father, along with Lord Darrell Dupa, who's credited with naming the city of Phoenix and Tempe. These guys are known as the father of modern day Phoenix, not of the 2,000, 3,000 year old area that the ancients used to live in and use those canal systems thousands of years prior to Jack Swilling coming in and digging them back out. But that very first spot that Jack Swilling laid down those shovels. I've done a TikTok and a YouTube video on those locations. You really can't see them because you got to stand across from the modern day canal, but it's really across from, if you're going to the airport and you're on the 143, um, there is the terminal there that fixes all the metro trains and is blocked off, but it's along the Arizona Canal area where everybody walks. Right down there, there are remnants of that original spot. There are artifacts from that dig down in there. I hope to someday get into that exact area. I had to stand about, I don't know, 100 yards off of it, and you really couldn't see the exact location, but I showed you pretty much where it was at from Google Earth. But so you have 1877, 1867. You have Jack Swilling in there digging out the ditches to bring some water into the area. 1860, a year later, you have the first permanent farm by Frenchy Sawyer, which I just gave you the directions and the where the sign is at on that video. And then right up the road, a couple miles, you have the Crosscut Cemetery, which really was in disrepair. It was like a 7-Eleven on the corner there. And they really just put chain link around it maybe 2.5 years ago to try to preserve the cemetery lot on the corner there. They're probably about $400,000 or $500,000 apartments right across the street now, but they're trying to figure some things out. Though I believe one of the tombstones when I saw it to the 1877, so some of those people that were on that Frenchy Sawyer farm, I believe, were buried in that area. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, cemetery in Phoenix, Arizona. Is that Crosscut Canal Cemetery right there? So pretty interesting Arizona history right there. Let's jump into the great state of Texas, and see what we got going on here. This is one of the cooler pioneer cemeteries that I went to in Texas. This took me about, it's like a 2-hour drive from Waco up above Fort Worth, probably about 45 minutes northeast of Fort Worth, Texas. And I had to get there to check out this grave site right here. Does anybody, maybe somebody's been there. If you can throw it in the chat. I haven't been looking at the chat. Let me throw it back over here. Nobody's been in the chat. Has anybody been to this cemetery? Can anybody? This is the obviously the rear view of the monument to this individual that's in this cemetery. This is the largest monument in this old cemetery. Very clean, very nice cemetery right here. A lot of early 1800s burials here. This lady, I believe, passed away in 1860. She was the wife of a very famous person from the Alamo. That's kind of your clue. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm getting too old and I can't remember things. It's kind of like your clue right here of this. And as you're checking that, I'm going to keep listening into my live on Facebook and making sure that this audio sounds right. So stand by for just 1 second. This is the audio for everybody that's on here. Looks like we got a couple of people on Facebook and YouTube. Could you just throw into the chat to make sure that the audio is man, I got this thing. I got two things going at one time here to try to make sure, because there are times that I'm on here and the audio just goes out and nobody says anything, and then I go from 9 people watching to 0 people watching. I'm like, what's going on? So let me know if the audio still sounds good, please, before we move forward and we find out who this monument is dedicated to in the Texas cemetery, about 40 minutes from Fort Worth, Texas. All right, I'm going to say the audio still sounds good. Nobody is in the comments telling me that this audio is messed up. So I'm going to take it that the audio is still good, and we're going to keep moving on. This is Davy Crockett's wife's gravesite right here. And she's looking out towards the direction of the Alamo from Texas. audio is wet. Audio is wavy, but it's understandable. See, I don't like that. All over. Thank you so much. My audio sounds like it's all over. Uh, there's a few things I can do. That after I show you the front of this gravesite, I'm going to restart the Zoom PodTrack P8, which I used for my audio, and try to restart it and see if it'll sound better. Let me show you the front of Davy Crockett's wife's gravesite here, and then I will restart this audio so it'll go dark for just a minute. I put my beautiful face on here telling you, hey, just wait 1 minute and we'll be back. Let's go back to the graphics. This is the stone that's underneath there, right there. Mrs. Elizabeth Crockett, wife of Davy Crockett, born in North Carolina, May 22nd, 1788. Married to Davy Crockett in Lawrence County, Tennessee in 1815. Died in Johnson County, now Hood County, January 31st, 1860, at the age of 72 years. Davy Crockett's wife. And if you look at the other side of that, it shows her looking out. Unfortunately, let me see if before I shut this audio, if I've got a picture of the front of this thing. I don't think I do. It's kind of bad of me, but anyhow, she's looking out towards the Alamo from Texas, waiting for her husband, Davy Crockett, to come home, which of course he will never come home back in 1836. So she passes away just before the Civil War in 1860 in the great state of Texas. All right, folks, I'm going to try because you're saying that this thing is wavy. So I am going to shut down the system. Hopefully we don't lose a bunch of people, but you got to have some audio. All right, I'm going to shut the system down. It's going to take about 1 minute and 30 seconds to come back on. So stay with me, and let's try to fix this audio. For those of you watching on YouTube, let me know what it sounds like too. But here we go. We're going to shut it down. It's like in Jurassic Park when they're going to hit the button and they don't know if they can bring on if everything's going to come back on time. But let's do it. Hold on one sec. Check 1 2, check check check. How about now? Do we got audio now? Do we have audio yet? We got 9 people still listening, and I hope you're not raised in the woods, so he knew every tree. No, Davy Crockett. Does this still sound all right, folks? Let me go into my my audio here and see if I can hear this here. Check 1 2, check check check. Yeah. We got audio now. We have audio yet? Sounds good. Thank you. Wow, smooth. I appreciate it. All right, let me pull it down because the only way I can find out is go on Facebook and listen to the audio and see if it sounds good. I do not know why it goes wacko like that. All right, so we just checked out the grave of Elizabeth Crockett, Davy Crockett's wife. It's a really unbelievable statue of her. Her children are buried around her at that particular site in Hood County, Texas. pretty unbelievable spot there. So let's pop this up. Thank you again for telling me that it sounds halfway decent here. Everybody, don't be afraid to jump in that chat. Tell me if this is boring you out of your mind, or if there's something that you want to see that I haven't talked about. Let me know. This is Boom. We're going to throw this up here right now. We do Florence, Arizona tours, 90-minute historic walking tours. Again, I told you we can do it by car, two-way radio and everything. $75 per person. And with gas, that's low, folks. Well, I'm not changing the prices. We do them 7 days a week. We do one at 10 a.m. and one at 1 p.m. We had no tours as of for today, so that's why we're live. And we had no tours tomorrow, so that's why I'm heading to Lake Havasu. So if you know of some historic places in Lake Havasu that I need to see, because I'm having a hard time finding anything other than the bridge, please let me know. Again, we do Florence, Arizona tours Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m., 1 p.m. You just get with me at this email, folks, and say, look, I want Tuesday at 10 a.m. We got a group of 3, and I'll tell you where we're going to meet, and we will have a great time. You won't regret it. You're going to love it. Florence, look, I've been to over 120 towns and cities in the state, 52,000 plus miles in a little over 5 years. Florence is the number 1 town for history. It beats Bisbee, it beats Douglas, it beats Tombstone, folks. It beats Benson, all these other towns that most people love to go to because they're tourist towns. Florence hasn't done the best job of bringing people in tourism-wise, but there are over 40 houses listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and you cannot say that about Tombstone. We all know Tombstone as, we want to go there because of Wyatt Earp and their brothers, right? Morgan and Virgil. And we want to go there because of Doc Holliday. We want to go there because of Johnny Ringo, the Clantons, the McClarys, the shootout at the OK Corral, right? But if you list how many of those buildings were there at the time of those people, folks, you have the Shefflin Hall that was built in 1881 that's just there for speaking engagements, and it's off of Fremont Street, not Allen Street, and it's not just open to the public. You have a church up the road that was built in the 1880s, early 1880, I'll say, that's not open to the public. You have a couple of private homes that aren't open to the public. And you have the only thing on Allen Street is the Birdcage Theater, and that opened after the 26th of December of 1881. Think about that. After the 26th of December of 1881. The Earps and everybody are out of Tombstone by the end of March of 1881. So 3 months after the Birdcage Theater opens, all these people have left Tombstone. So there's not a lot of original stuff going on in Tombstone, but there is in Florence. And let me just give you a little taste. John Clum, the first elected mayor of Tombstone, Arizona in 1881. He moved there in 1880. He was put on the ballot like in November of 1880. He wasn't running. He didn't want to run for mayor, but they liked him and they wanted to put him on. He wins it as of January 1881. He's the first elected mayor of Tombstone. He's on, he goes there in 1880 for really one purpose. He leaves his wife and kids in Tucson, and he heads there in February of 1880 to start a newspaper. That newspaper is going to be called the Tombstone Epitaph. The Tombstone Epitaph, you may have heard of it. It still exists today. That's John Clum. So he starts the first newspaper, the Tombstone Epitaph. He is the first elected mayor. And after the shooting on October 26, 1881 at the OK Corral, he is on the list, the vendetta list for the Clantons and the McClarys and the Cowboys. They hate John Clum because they believe he sides with his newspaper and his politics with the Earp brothers, with Doc Holliday and stuff. And just to clear it, John Clum has written, there's a great books written by John Clum's in his memoirs and stuff put together by his sons. John Clum did not like or care for Doc Holliday whatsoever. He thought the biggest mistake that the Earps made on the 26th of October of 1881 was taking Doc Holliday down to that alley to confront the Cowboys. That he believes that's the worst mistake they made because he believes that he instigated the whole thing. And so Florence, his house, he moves there. He's an Indian agent at the San Carlos Indian Reservation when he's a young man in his 20s from 1874 to 1877. A lot going on with him and Geronimo at that time. And that's a story for another time during the tour. And he comes to in 1877, and in October of 1877, starts building house. The house is still there, still standing. People live in it today. I know the people there. I visited with them numerous times when I go to Florence. That house still stands, the John Clum home. So that's just one of many stories. There's a female spy during the Civil War. Her story I will always prop up, so she is never forgotten. One of the most famous actors of the silent movies from the 1920s and 30s stayed at that same exact house. This individual perished on the way to Florence, about 12 miles outside of Florence on State Route 79, old historic or historic Road 80. I believe on October 12th of 1940. A very famous individual. He was a pallbearer at Wyatt Earp's funeral. But we'll talk all about that kind of stuff. A lot going on. That place was founded in 1866, Florence, by a guy named Levi Ruggles, who comes to be an Indian agent out there from Washington, D.C. after the Civil War. He was an officer in the Civil War. And if you think about it, Tombstone wasn't founded until 1879 by Ed Shefflin, when in 1877 he struck it. He found gold and silver up in their hills right there of Tombstone. In 1877, it doesn't become the town of Tombstone until 1879. Florence, 1866. There are homes still standing from 1867 in Florence. 1867. So there's a lot more going on in Florence. Tombstone, everybody get there, enjoy it. It's like a theme park. A lot of tourists down there, a lot of tourist places to buy things. Very few original things. I would say the best place is the Birdcage Theater. And again, opening after Christmas Day of 1881. So the Earps and all these people that we love to watch in the movies and stuff like that, they're gone in 3 months. They are no longer in Tombstone. So anyway, sign up for my tours at the AZTT, at the AZTT.org. That's my email. Tell me Monday through Sunday, first come, first serve. You want the 10 a.m. Monday, you want the 10 a.m. Tuesday, you want the 1 p.m. on Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And I will get back with you. Just tell me it's got to be a minimum of 2 people, and it is $75 per tour. And we also do one up to the historic Globe Cemetery, same price, $75 per person. You ride up there with me. It's about 75 miles one way up to 60 East outside of Gilbert, going through Apache Junction and heading up there, going through Superior, and then heading through Miami, and then Claypool, and then into Globe. It's about 75, 76 miles. It takes about 5 total hours to go up there, drive up there. It's an hour and a half each way. Do a couple hours in the cemetery, maybe an hour and a half in the cemetery, turn around and come back home. So it's a great tour, folks. You won't believe who's buried in that Pioneer Cemetery. It's pretty off the hook wise. The second best cemetery, Pioneer Cemetery in the state to me, and I've been to quite a few of them. Of course, not all of them, but the amount of people that are buried there, just to give you a sampling of an individual, would be I always tell this one, Finn Clanton, the brother of Billy and Ike Clanton from the OK Corral, from the Cowboys, from the Tombstone. He is involved in the believed to be involved in the Morgan Earp murder, the shooting of Virgil Earp. He's in on a lot of this stuff before he settles down in Globe City, Finn Clanton. So he's just one of like 7 or 8 people we'll talk about that made a huge impact on Southwest and pretty much on Arizona history. Bloodiest feud in U.S. history. Most of those guys are buried up in the Globe Pioneer Cemetery too. So just get with me. The email is right there. Again, we do tours Monday through Sunday. Tomorrow I'm heading to Lake Havasu. So if anybody knows a special historical spot around Lake Havasu, please put it in the comments, because I'm having a hard time. I'm going to go with my buddy for 4.5 hours, and I can only see the London Bridge and the history on that. And I'm having a hard time finding other things but tourist things, any history, because that place was set up around 1963, 64 time frame, I believe. So let me know if you know anything about Lake Havasu. It would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's see, go in here and check out a couple more spots before hit the chat. Audio is great now, thank you. They say Lake Havasu Museum of History is a must visit. I've seen that on the thing, and thank you. I appreciate that. I will, let's put that, let's roll that up here. I will check it out. I'll definitely, anything history. My buddy's going up there to check out because he has family and friends coming in town that want to go up there. So I'm catching a ride with him so that he can, yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, Tom Mix. Tom Mix stayed in Florence, folks. This man was making like $30,000 a month in 1920. This guy was off the hook famous. I don't know who we can say today. You know, we got Top Gun 2 out with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is a pretty famous actor for like 30 plus years. This guy was like that, but in silent movies. And again, he was the pallbearer at Wyatt Earp's funeral. He was on the way to Florence from Oracle, Arizona, and he got into a car wreck. His car went into a wash about 15 miles outside of Florence on State Route 79. There is a marker out there marking the spot where his spirit, they say, left his body as he went into that wash area in October of 1940. His body was flown out to California, had a big Hollywood sort of a funeral for him. We'll talk about that on the Florence, Arizona tours. Sign up. Let's go over here. Graphics. Let's see what else we got going on here. Sometimes I want to hit these things, but they're so small that I'm like, am I hitting the right button? Am I hitting the right button? Trained over 5,500 men for a secret mission in tanks right in this area. In this I had to stop at a rest area. It amazes me at what people do to rest area bathrooms. This is the reason I traveled 188 miles to Quartzsite, Arizona to check out the grave of High Jolly. You see, High Jolly was hired in 1857 as a camel herder in the U.S. Army's short-lived historic Camel Corps by Lieutenant Edward F. Beale in his expedition to chart a wagon road across New Mexico and Arizona, ending at the Colorado River. In 1861, the Civil War commenced, ending the day of the Camel Corps. High Jolly returned to this very area, trying his hand at mining, packing, scouting, and delivering the jackass mail and selling water to travelers. Talk about being in the middle of no man's land. This next stop I'm taking, I'm leaving the car back there. I don't know if you can see it. I left it running, but I locked it because it's getting warm. But we're gonna hit a geoglyph. We just stopped at High Jolly's pyramid there in where he's buried in the cemetery, in the High Jolly Cemetery at that. And I gotta watch it because I really messed up my knee on a hike before, and so I'm taking it very slow through here. But I'm telling you what, I think this is the 95. And boy, you're out here all by yourself, folks. You are out here all by yourself. That's why it's always great to take a friend, because I think the site is about a couple hundred yards from where you park the car. And then you're a good 9.5 miles down this road. Then you turn left to go towards Quartzsite, and that's another 4.5 to 5 miles. So you're roughly 15 miles out in the middle of no man's land. Hopefully the knee holds up. All right, so I'm almost there. I'm gonna pop this drone up. It should draw every huge fly that's around here to the buzzing noise of the drone. Again, I left my glasses back in the car, but I'm not going back to get those suckers. So, all right, here we are. Check out this geoglyph right here. Woo! It is beautiful. It's all roped off, very well preserved out here in the the geoglyph before you tells an important story. Native Americans of the lower Colorado River region have oral traditions which were handed down through generations. This geoglyph may tell the mythological story of a god who thrusted a spear into the ground to make the mighty Colorado River. 1959, the United States government launched the Corona Spy Satellite Program, where they launched 144 spy satellites up into space. There was only one problem. They needed a way to calibrate the cameras on those spy satellites. So they set up 272 of these Maltese-looking crosses throughout the Arizona desert from 1960 to 1967. Gonna go down to the Death Cave. Why not? Why not? In 1878, a group of Apache raiders attacked the Navajo encampment near the Little Colorado River. Almost every Navajo man, woman, and child was killed in the raid. When the Navajo leaders got word of this attack, they sent out 25 men to avenge the fallen encampment. But unfortunately, the trail went cold. A few days later, they sent out another scouting team. The scouts had found nothing until they were startled by a blast of hot air that was coming from underneath the ground. Upon further investigation, the scouts discovered that the hot air was coming from an Apache campfire in an underground cavern beneath them. They gathered up the dry sagebrush and driftwood on the canyon floor and started a fire at the entrance of the cave. Years before Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin set foot on the moon, a joint venture between NASA and the USGS had managed to recreate the moon's lunar landscape in northern Arizona. In July and October of 1967, engineers blasted 143 craters to make a real-life replica of the Sea of Tranquility. All right, we are back. There's a couple of videos. Hopefully you enjoyed those. There's new Arizona Time with Stewart Steve Gladiator that's all wrapped up in case you see me rolling around. Especially if, man, I'll be driving. Well, I won't be driving that far tomorrow. My buddy will be driving. But I'm all over town in this thing. If you ever see it, I have some pretty cool coins to give out to people. So if you see me honk, if you're next to me, I'll flip it out the window there and give you one of the coins. Got a QR code that goes to our social media platforms. They're pretty cool. We got two of them, two different styles. One that I give people that I meet in person. But if you ever see the old Arizona timeless tours Jeep out and about, I got my face all over this thing, very vain. Say hello. Also got my email on the back of it to schedule tours. Give it a honk. Saw it yesterday at the stop sign. Somebody was like waving through the glass and stuff like that because the light had turned green too quick. But I would have put out that Arizona timeless tours like poker coin that we have. If the light would have stayed red just for a minute, you know, and you don't want the light to turn, uh, that's it. If you see it on the road again, say hello, give it a honk, try to do the speed limit, and obey all the rules of the road like you should. You really need to when your name is all over something and you're trying to sell a business. So yeah, that's it. There it is. We do TikTok consult, 20-minute consultation. We got about 171,600 followers on TikTok, over 70 million total views to it since April, the end of April of 2020. Check it out. It's my largest platform. It's got the most up-to-date information at the Arizona time this year. Uh, all right, we're back in the Texas. We're doing Texas, Arizona. This Susanna, I wanted to find this grape site. One of my least favorite places in the 3 months I was down. Sometimes I say things and people take it way personal. Okay? I say that I don't like Tombstone all that much. I don't hate Tombstone. I just prefer like Florence history over Tombstone history. I think Tombstone is inflated from what they have there today, but I understand why people from around the United States and around the world want to go to Tombstone. But Austin, Texas is just another world of itself. This is just before you get to Austin, coming from Waco. You're probably about 4 miles from downtown Austin from this cemetery, but I had to get there to find this grave. The one that's on the left right there is Susanna Dickinson. This is awesome to me. Susanna Dickinson and her child were at the Alamo. Okay, they were survivors. There were some women and children that were allowed to go, and her baby was there. Susanna Dickinson and her baby, and I'll show you a close up of the stone right here. What it says on it right there. This Susanna Dickinson Hanning, she remarried, mother of the babe of the Alamo. To me, this is unbelievably awesome history in this cemetery. It truly, truly is. I had to get there. I had to check it out. Even though I didn't do that well on TikTok, I was like, I have to be there. I have to film this. I take videos of this. This is a survivor from the siege of the Alamo, folks. And a lot of quotes from her are in Survivor's book of the Alamo that I purchased at the Alamo. There's a lot. She didn't see the battle taking place because they were hiding out in the mission part of the Alamo that you see today, the church part of the Alamo. But a really cool historical site, the Susanna Dickinson, the babe and the babe of the mother of the babe of the Alamo. Pretty unbelievable spot. Let me see if I got the mark there. But pretty cool cemetery. I mean, this cemetery is huge, and her husband is buried right next to her. But pretty unbelievable piece of history. All right. This is in a church in downtown San Antonio, and I was looking up, the grave of like Travis and Crockett and Bowie. The big three you would say at the Alamo. They were all courageous individuals at the Alamo, but you're talking about David Crockett and Bowie, and so I went to look for the grave, and it gave the church. So when you go inside of the church in San Antonio, in like the breezeway of the church, you look to the left, and there's this small casket, and it's supposed to contained. Now, there ain't no possible way in the world that you know this, but you see on the right, they have this old sign there. It's just the final resting place of bone of Travis, Crockett, and Bowie are supposed to be inside of this small little casket. And their faces, it says heroes, Texas heroes on that little marker in front there. And it's got a picture of Travis, Crockett, and Bowie on it. So they're saying that this was found many years ago, buried beneath the older church, and then they brought it up and replaced this new one right here in the breezeway of that church. So you're not going to find like Davy Crockett, of course, and all these people that were killed at the Alamo, but they are saying that this. I try to find people who are of the know. There was nobody at that church at the time, and they have a little gift area that's outside of the church. Um, they had a little history of where these original bones were buried underneath the altar of the old church. So how they know this, I don't know. And was there any DNA done on these bones? I don't know. But that came up, so I had to travel down to San Antonio, spend a couple of days there. I love San Antonio. I will never live in San Antonio. There are reasons for that, but I love the city of San Antonio. I spent 4 days on the Riverwalk there at a hotel, and I walked that whole place and looked at the history there. It's absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully someday soon we'll get back and explore some more in the great city of San Antonio, Texas. We love it there. But yeah, here you go. Final resting place. Travis, Crockett, and Bowie, San Antonio. We'll move forward. Here's a great place to take family and friends from out of town. The Air Force, the Commemorative Air Force Museum in Mesa, Arizona, located at Falcon Field. The place is absolutely phenomenal. Worth every penny to get in. The people that work there are great. They'll tell you about every aircraft they have in there. These most of these aircraft you'll never see anywhere else. Maybe at some air shows somewhere, but the Commemorative Air Force Museum in Mesa, Arizona, at Falcon Field is a must-see, especially if you have family and friends in out of town. If you visited yourself, take family and friends from out of town. They're going to have a great time at the airport, at the Commemorative Air Force Museum at Falcon Field. It really is. Falcon Field has a history of the British who were flying there to prepare their pilots for World War II. The pilots that perished in that training at Falcon Field are buried at the Mesa City Cemetery. Like we have in Normandy, we have American Ground. We believe it's a sacred American ground where our soldiers are buried. They believe that they have a ceremony every November. They have a wreath, representation of the Queen laid there. That is holy ground to them in the Mesa City Cemetery. So if you've ever been out there and checked it out, you'll see it. It's got the British flags flying there. But Falcon Field is worth the trip. Definitely worth checking out the Commemorative Air Force Museum in Mesa, Arizona, folks. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. On the way to, I'll be driving right by Camp House, right here on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. I find this just extraordinary. It's when I went out to Fort Site last year. They just showed you the video where we just went to the cemetery where Hyde Valley from the Camel Corps in 1857 with Edward Steele and his famous camel expedition during going across the 35th parallel to start the first wagon road. And then they go back in 1859 and widen that wagon road. They widen it to 10 feet across all the way to California. Pretty unbelievable expedition that they did. But the first one was April of 1857 to November of 1857 when he finished, and then he went back in 1859 to really widen it out. And people used that. That road was used at 1926 as the is Route 66, that wagon road. And then years later, when Interstate 40 came in, most of that wagon road was Interstate 40. So, but it was laid out so that the train could go across. And in 1881, the train comes to Holbrook, Arizona, and where the train tracks are laid are right near the original 1859 wagon road. So a lot of history, but when you go out there past port sites going up towards Lake Havasu, you'll pass on 5 roads. There are a couple of tanks, a couple of memorials right there, an old museum, and it's where General Patton had that top secret mission that they were taking place in that area during World War II for North Africa. So a really unbelievable spot. Again, to me, just in the middle of no man's land. I was out there on a Saturday morning, a few cars around there. It's not far from Interstate 10, maybe a couple of miles, but definitely worth checking out if you ever headed into Lake Havasu. You can go right by it on the right hand side. Old Camp House, where General Patton was training. I believe it's just over 4,500 men and tanks for that secret mission in North Africa during World War II. So a pretty cool little spot right there. All right, folks, let's put it here. We're going to end this Arizona Time with us live. Appreciate everybody. I just popped on. Hopefully the audio remains good throughout the whole thing. Thanks for everybody who was out there being my producer as we were live. I need to go down with my son and watch the Arizona Diamondbacks game. I've been up here 20 minutes too long, so I do need to get down there. But I appreciate everybody. Please keep this thing rolling. It's hard to get out there. Again, everybody's feeling the hurt of the $5.50+ gas. Last year I was traveling around at the $2.29 a gallon. It's hard to get places, so if you book these tours, it truly helps me get to all these other places. It really does. It's the only way I can bring money in. The other way there's one other way, and that is on the Newsbreak app. We've been accepted for the last 2.5 months on Newsbreak. It really helps fund the tours that I do, getting out. The only thing that's actually bringing in revenue for me right now. So if you download the Newsbreak app, and on most Apple phones, iPhones, Newsbreak app is already downloaded. If you go to the Arizona Timeless Tours on the Newsbreak app and follow me, hit that like button, and leave a comment there. Every time somebody watches or leaves a comment, it helps bring revenue into the Arizona Timeless Tours. The Newsbreak app has been fantastic. They found me. They got a hold of me to come onto their site. It's been absolutely fantastic to be able to fill up the Jeep through the money that's being made through the Newsbreak app. So please, that's just one way you can help keep me out there, because after these next 2 runs, I'm going to make the whole book and Lake Havasu tomorrow. That's going to be the end of the traveling, and we're going to have to mix some old video footage until we figure out another way to do things. So I need those tours booked to Globe and Scorn. We're keeping them at the exact same price, $75 per person, not raising it up. And also, hit that Newsbreak app and watch those videos. We have 72 videos in 2 months uploaded to the Newsbreak app, which is greatly appreciated. If you went in there, hit that like button and comment on those videos. They're just short, 30-second videos, folks. Let me go over to the chat today. Thank you for everybody out here. Brian, audio's not good. Check the chat. Yeah, I'm sorry. All right, folks, I'm going to take off. I don't know why the audio keeps going out like that, but I appreciate everybody. Take care of yourself. We'll leave out on